Okay, so hello everyone. Yeah, today we are going to talk again with one of our guest speakers, Bob Killen. So it's the Open Source Connect Bangladesh. So let me actually invite our guest to the stage and let's know about like what he's doing and how what to know about open source. So hey Bob, so how are you?
Not too bad. How about you?
Yeah, I'm fine as well. So yeah, thank you so much for accepting our invitation for the session. So yeah, as we were talking about like open source and something like this, so it would be great if you can just introduce yourself, like what you are doing currently, and like yeah, it would be great.
My name is Bob Killen. I'm known as Mr. Bobby Tables across all the things. Um, right now, I am predominantly involved in Kubernetes. I have a chair of the special interest group contributor experience. And I'm also in my second term of being elected to the Kubernetes steering committee. For my day job, I am a program manager at in Google's open source programs office.
That's great. So yeah, that's great. So yeah, the most interesting part is like I'm one of the kind of Kubernetes organization member for the GitHub. So I do check a lot of mails. So yeah, about you like you are mailing something like that. That's awesome. So yeah, so today we were talking about like open source, right? This the session is all about open source. Like yeah, so can you share like what the first time and when you get involved with open source? Like what is open source for you?
Sure. So, like, I got involved in open source many years ago. In What's funny is in 2014, me and my buddy Jeff Jeefy, he works for the CNCF actually now. Um, we were building something, a our own container sort of provisioning system and orchestration engine in the University of Michigan, and we then discovered Docker shortly thereafter, like it had just dropped, and we switched over and were getting involved in that. Um, and then this thing called Kubernetes came out, and we started actually contributing to Kubernetes like way back in the day, before 1.0. Um, like talking with the people in IRC, and we actually Kubernetes was a little bit too immature at the time for us to do things with containers in like we worked in a healthcare group, so like we didn't want it to run patient things on that time, so we switched over to like Mesos. um and then like he and I both left the hospital to go to like the advanced research computing division of the University of Michigan, in which case we went back hard in Kubernetes and we both started like contributing significantly in 2016, 2017, um, and
That's
just
pretty
kind
early,
of took
right?
off from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, start like you started working with Kubernetes, right? Back at
Yep.
that time. Yeah. So yeah, open. So a lot of things that's go actually happen like with Kubernetes nowadays, right? So we have KubeCon, KubeDay, and so on and so forth. So we were talking about this, right? Like you were attending a lot of KubeCon. So what's your experience on KubeCon, and why do you think that students or professionals should actually join KubeCon? Yeah.
KubeCon is great. Like it's honestly, it's for me, it's like seeing my friends that I've met and known on the internet for years now. But it is a great learning and networking opportunity. Um, for KubeCon itself, I actually recommend that you, when you're looking at sessions, the ones that you want to attend, look at the ones where you actually want to talk to the speaker. Um, and or you're very interested in the subject, and because you can catch like the other things online, but the real thing you get from being able to be there in person is being able to talk with the people. And like sometimes you might be stumped on something, or you'll have a question, and
Mhm.
you'll like going into it, you might have taken you forever online to find it, but just that short conversation there um can usually come to an answer. Just like really interesting things happen, plus like just being able to meet and talk with all sorts of people.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Like yeah. So you've been attending a lot of KubeCons, right? So my me personally have been like I have attended a lot of KubeCons in online. So my experience has been like going to the online. So what you were mentioning, like you can actually watch the session and something, but the most interesting part is like talking with the speaker, which is like available in the in person one. So yeah, that's great. So also there are a lot of like we were talking like there are a lot of cube days or there are like Kubernetes community days happening. So like what's you saying on that, like uh yeah why
Yeah.
is it better in some aspect like other than Kubernetes? Yeah.
So I'll say like KubeCon itself is very expensive.
Mm,
Whether you it's not intentional. It's just kind of the way it is because of how big the conference is. We're
yeah.
talking, 9, 10,000 people in person.
Hmm.
Um, and plus there's, travel. Most of the hotels around there are very expensive. Um, and you like plus for a lot of people that they run into visa issues. Um,
Yeah.
where the like Kubernetes community days and like Cube days come in, they are smaller events. Um, but there is that big networking opportunity. You might have less of the, networking with the international audience, but you're
Mm,
getting to know like everyone in your local area. Um,
yeah.
it's kind of like a bigger meetup. Um,
Yeah.
and it again, it's like it's a very good networking opportunity, especially like if you're looking for, you know, jobs or things like that in your local area.
Hmm.
It's just like very useful to get to know the people there.
Yeah. Obviously I like the networking question or something like that. That's awesome. Okay, so that's great. And so, again, coming to the perspective of like you started, you have contributed to Kubernetes back at that time from the early stages, and you're just now doing some awesome work, like you were saying to me. Like for now, or like assuming that a person as a student, like assuming there is a student who want to contribute, not the non-code contribution, the coding contribution to Kubernetes. Like, how should or what are the minimum kind of skills he or she should have to get started with Kubernetes, something like that.
Um, the main thing that like that I'll say in general, like Kubernetes is huge. Outside of the main Kubernetes project itself, there's 350 repos in the various like orgs, or in like various like sub projects. Um, most will you will need to know Go, but there's also other things that's like, Java, Python. There's all the client libraries. There's a whole variety of things. So if you don't know Go, there are still opportunities for you, but Go will be the best thing, at least in terms of languages.
Okay, yeah, that's great. So yeah, that's good. So as we're mentioning, like you're battling a lot of KubeCon. So can you share some one of the like which KubeCon you do remember the most? Like you some memories with that. So yeah, we just want to know about like KubeCon experience or something like that.
Um, probably actually the my favorite KubeCon was Detroit last year. Because like
Okay.
uh, I grew up in Michigan, and so Detroit was like home turf for me. I did a keynote with Jeff about sort of Michigan, what sort of like Detroit means for that sort of thing. Um, but I also like ran the Kubernetes Contributor Summit, where I'm there with like again 200 of my closest friends. Um, and I tried to keep it quiet, but like it did get as my birthday during the contributor summit, and so they want to bring up a cake and like everyone singing like happy birthday during during
Oh,
lunchtime.
that's really awesome. Yeah, obviously you're going to memorize. That would be really actually awesome for you, right? So as a contributor, like we as contributors, like meeting new people, going to new places is something like yeah, we know a lot of people in online. We do contribute with them. We do have chats, but and in person we do meet them. So this is the beauty of like KubeCon on any other conferences, right? So we were talking about like open source and something. So by the way, the one thing is like you were mentioning like you do work at Google as well. So what is your role at there, and what is yeah, what are you doing there actually?
So I am a program manager in the open source programs office. Um,
Okay.
essentially what happens is if someone wants to open source something within Google,
Mm-hmm.
we will get involved and sort of help them, like, how can we make sure that they are successful? Because
Mm-hmm.
when something is being open sourced, not every project wants to like be a massive thing like Kubernetes. Like sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's just being open sourced for transparency reasons, or they're only expecting like a few minor things, and so we will work with them to basically just develop a strategy around that. um,
Okay.
the other thing is like our my team also runs things like the Google Summer of Code, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's the same thing for like tech writing. um,
Mm-hmm.
so we have various
I guess dogs
program
are talking about the
season of
dogs, right?
docs. Season of docs,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, season
Yeah,
of
yeah,
dogs. Yeah, I do also make some mistakes while talking about the dogs.
yeah.
Yes,
S-
okay.
so yeah, my group is also responsible for that sort of stuff.
Okay, I get it. Point. Okay, so sometimes like when I started like working with Kubernetes something, so I also came to know about the history of Kubernetes, like where what it was. So it was one of the Google's project, and then it was dropped to donated to Linux Foundation, right? So and still there are a lot of companies who have actually like if you talk about Google and AWS or Microsoft, so on and so forth, they have their own services on Kubernetes, right? So why do you think, or what, why Kubernetes was so much hit? Like there are a lot of projects, right? But still there is going on and on. So why it is so much hit? So what's your opinion on that?
uh why Kubernetes has been so successful?
Yes, obviously.
Okay. um the main thing is like I like to call it the great equalizer, because like instead of having to learn all the cloud specific stuff, like instead of having to learn all the things strictly AWS or strictly GCP, um you can learn Kubernetes, and that skill set transfers to everything. um
Okay.
and people realize that, like, that flexibility along with sort of the general patterns that it brought in terms of being you know um declarative, where it's trying to, like, all the self-healing capabilities and things like that that are sort of innate with it, was just like a huge value add. um and so it made a lot more sense to design and build for Kubernetes instead of going for all the specific cloud providers.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. So there are a lot of like companies using this Kubernetes, and yeah, obviously as you, the lot of users and these summits, and that's why this summit gets so much hit, right? So that's great. So obviously that's great. Okay, so you were talking about like I was asking you like how to contribute, and as a beginner how they should get into it. Okay, so like is there any thing you'd like to add, like there are any opportunities for the open source and something that students can or professionals can get into
So
recent times?
like there is some mentorship like there's the LFX,
Yeah.
opportunities there. um
Mm-hmm.
but the biggest thing, like, I can, like, if you do want to get involved, there's a couple things that you can do that will be both a much better experience for you and the maintainers. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you want to get involved, and this isn't just Kubernetes, this is sort of like project wide. Most maintainers, or open source wide,
Yeah.
most maintainers are like, frankly, burned out and strapped for time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so if you are, like, intentional, if you come sort of prepared, and instead of just saying like, "Hi, I'm new to the project, can you please you know teach me or tell me what I'm going to do,
Mm-hmm.
or what I should do to get involved," um like, do your due diligence and read. And like, if you start asking specific questions like, um
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, like, I noticed this issue is still open, um
Mm-hmm.
I I'm interested in working on it, but like couldn't find this info. Is there like a good
Mm-hmm.
reference or thing that I could point to?" Like, they're much more willing to, like, maintainers are much more willing to get involved and help you there.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
the like other like big thing that I can suggest is don't be like when you open your first PR,
Mhm.
um, give it time for people to review.
Mhm.
Most of them are busy, and it might be a couple days before it's reviewed. Um,
Yeah.
this is less likely to be the case in smaller projects. Like
Mhm.
Kubernetes is great, but there's 150 CNCF projects, and a lot of them
Mhm.
are actually easier to start contributing to than Kubernetes itself.
Yeah.
Um, but like outside of waiting, don't also like overcommit. Know your what you can reasonably do.
Mhm.
um Try and select something that you can actually complete. And
Yeah.
essentially it's just like be intentional when you engage. Like, know what you want to contribute to, like find it an area in Kubernetes or whatever project, find
Mhm.
something that interests you, that aligns with your interests. um Learn about it a bit, and then you know start asking questions, start getting involved. Because once the maintainers see that like you've sort of taken that first step and gone and like actually done your bit of reading and everything,
Mhm.
they'll be much more willing to help you and even mentor you, um, if you have sort of like shown that kind of engagement.
Mhm. Yeah. That's a really important point because like it is actually true for everything, right? If you talk about LinkedIn, someone message you over LinkedIn or Slack or something, if someone is like saying hi, how can I contribute, or hi, hello, this kind of things, people are so much busy nowadays, right? So it's really tough to get the response. But yeah, if you say what you mentioned, like if someone is like done reading that documentation, the readme portion something, and then someone is stuck, then uh, obviously the maintenance, everyone actually do check out the messages or something like Slack messages, something like that. Because yeah, and that's where maybe if someone say sees that, yeah, how can I start contributing, or if someone see that, yeah, this is the thing I'm going to work on it, and this is the research I've done it, so then you're going to reply on it. Because you, so yeah, this
Yeah.
is where they should be brave enough. Okay,
Actually, like,
so I guess.
sorry.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. No,
I was gonna
sure,
say,
sure.
like, most maintainers, like, good first issues get snapped up all the time. And it's the same like help wanted, but like most maintainers will keep good issues like to themselves. And when someone actually shows that they have taken those steps, um,
Mhm.
they will be like, hey, you should take a look at this, and they will give them something there to work on and be much more willing to like help and coach them.
Yeah, obviously, because and also as we were talking about the mentorship programs, right? Linux Foundations programs. So while applying to those programs, you should have some experience of coding or open source contribution before that, right? So this
Yep.
will help someone on that. Okay, so we have a question coming up. So yeah, there is a question like, is it worthwhile to make non-code contribution to open source project? So yeah, so you were talking about the season of dogs, right? So I
Yep.
guess related to that non-code contribution. Yeah.
It is definitely worthwhile to make non-code contributions. Um, it gets you involved in the community at large. Um, it is a very good like door opener because a lot of people start with non-code contributions and then sort of move to making code contributions.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so like I still say it's worthwhile. The other thing is like if you're reading docs and you're trying to do like eventually do a code contribution of some kind, and you notice that there's a big gap, like
Yeah.
add to the docs and make it easier for the next person to do the same, and it'll be appreciated by the maintainers and you, even though like it is a non-code contribution.
Mhm. Okay, that's great. Obviously, like I also started my contribution with like documentation. So yeah, since it was study and the Kubernetes documentation as well. Okay, so again, as the question like, what role do you see corporate sponsorship playing in the future sustainable open source?
So like for open source like that is in the CNCF, um, I'd say like having corporate backed open source is very important. Um, and because like most of the actual maintainers that you'll find in these projects are doing it as part of their job. Um,
Mhm.
and so as long as there is a, I'll say like business value in them in that project, that will continue to be part of their jobs. They will continue to be contributing to upstream. In fact, like most corporate maintainers that I know, um, would love to be contributing more. It's just trying to sort of figure out how to, you know, tie their contributions back to how it relates to the business. Um, but they are seriously the lifeblood of projects like Kubernetes and most of the things in the CNCF.
Yeah. So yeah, again, another question like, where do you see the biggest opportunities for growth in open source contributions globally? Mm,
That's a tough one. For growth open source contribution, I'm actually not sure. The one thing that might be in terms of doing good for the projects, um,
mhm,
we have the whole um, supply chain security stuff going on right now, um, and helping projects you know adopt that um, will help them, and theoretically that de-risks other companies using it by reducing a um I don't know, a vulnerability, like I'm blanking on the name of it. Dang it. A method of
mhm.
exploitation. I don't think that exactly answers your question, but like I don't know. That's the best thing I can come up with right now.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so yeah, other than this, I guess, so yeah, so other than this, like, I had a question like, yesterday we had a session, the three of the sales ambassador, we were talking about like how to schedule a Kubernetes event, etc., etc. So there was a question, interesting question on like, so how this AI is going to impact the open source. So do you have anything on that, like, how this AI is going to integrate, and how the big companies like Google and others are thinking of like integrating AI maybe with open source? Anything on your perspective? Yeah.
So the AI has already impacted open source and mostly in GitHub's Copilot. Um,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
in fact, like most projects at this point have had someone, I won't say most, but like they had like 1.2 million maintainers doing stuff with Copilot initially. I think Copilot is a great help to maintainers of this, but a pattern that I have personally seen and has been a problem is if you are, you know, new to a language, new to this thing, um,
Mm-hmm.
people spend more time on sort of prompt engineering to try and get what they want from Copilot or whatever thing that's generating it, instead of actually focusing on the thing itself. Um, and it winds up being like it's producing code that you don't necessarily fully understand, and when it actually gets to the point where it's being reviewed by maintainers, um, it often doesn't quite meet the standards, and because you like there wasn't the understanding of what it exactly did, it's
Mm-hmm.
very difficult for the person that generated it to actually take the feedback and work through it.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
And we've actually seen a big increase in spam PRs and responding to issues with stuff like basically just, I'll say, like garbage from generated generated code Copilot, or you know um
Mhm.
chat GPT in response to issues. And it's really hard to detect. The problem is like it looks just good enough that it is like you have to give it a lot more time to like actually like review it, to
Mhm.
turn like, okay, no, this is junk, before we have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
um and just like say, versus a normal sort of, also like junk PR.
Mhm. So it's a bit problem for the maintainers as well, right? Because it seems like the whole code is okay, but in certain point you will see, okay, so it's like, yeah, it doesn't work or it's not good, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
For
if yeah, sure,
I
sure.
was gonna say, the one thing I'll say, like, if you are very experienced with, like, if you know the language really well and know the code base really
Hmm.
well, Copilot and things like that are big time savers, because
Yes.
it is like really, it's like super awesome autocomplete. But you have to
Hmm.
know
Yes.
like how to actually, you know, you have to know what it should look like beforehand, before you get it to sort of do what you want.
Yeah, it's basically like, yeah, it's time saver. This is the most important part, because other than this, like, what about like when you were giving the feedback to that PR, right? So you were talking about the prompt engineering, like someone is doing the prompt engineering and then doing some contribution or something like that. So if someone takes that uh, feedback as a prompt engineer and they do, there's a good chance of, I guess, getting the right code, although they won't have the knowledge. But is it the
It, it's
opportunity is there?
it's often incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
At least from what I have personally seen and reviewed. A good example: a lot of the stuff that they might generate code, they might generate a
Mm-hmm.
function, but they aren't adding the tests for that function, and they aren't updating, where it is, where it should be used in the rest of the code base. It's basically just this like snippet, that
Okay.
isn't actually meaningful. Um, Versus someone that's actually like taking the time to go through it and
Mhm.
truly understands it.
Okay, great. So yeah, so that's how you mentioned, like, this is how the open source contribution and AI has been, like, this is something has happening. Okay, that's great. But the question, like, I was asking is like, this is how the contributors are doing using the open AI and contributing and something like that. But any specific or some anything you are interested on saying, like any project that is open source and the contributors are also, or maintainers are using AI, something like that. Any project that's going to be something like that, or about that, can you mention about anything like that?
So the like projects that are using AI, or like
Yes, projects they are using AI, because that's also open source as well,
yeah.
something like that.
Um, I don't know too many personally. There is like Kate's GPT, which is to try and like help you sort of be like an advanced troubleshooter for you,
Okay.
by looking at your logs and trying to figure out what it's actually what it actually means.
Hmm.
Um, the Outside of all the like Hugging Face and the other stuff that's part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So like I am actually very skeptical of all this stuff, because when I was at the University of Michigan and
Hmm.
working for advanced research computing and technology, so like my job was dealing with like AI and ML and batch computing, and
Okay.
um, a lot of a lot of the stuff around like LLMs, and a lot of the stuff is
Hmm.
mostly, at least at this point, mostly hype, and
Yeah.
isn't actually super super useful. That might
Okay.
change in time.
Hmm.
Like I think it definitely will, change in time. Um, but right now it's kind of just being implemented, or people trying to implement it everywhere without
Hmm.
thinking things through fully.
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, when I was mentioning like the AI project and something that's open source as well, something like that. So yeah, something that came up in my mind was like LLM projects. So the lot of projects by also Meta. So they are like they doing that open source. They're making that open source as well. This kind of things are happening nowadays. So LLM, etc. Okay, that's really awesome. Okay, so I really hope like just like the open source, like we have best practices about open source, so that will also will be for the AI and others as well, and that will impact our open source very much well. Because yeah, you are mentioning that the spamming one, so it will be really painful for the maintainers and the contributors as well. So yeah, I guess we can wrap up our session because we had some good conversation about the session. So yeah, so I guess thank you so much for attending, actually invite, accepting our invitation, and you it was really awesome talking with you. Your experience, you've been working with Google's project, and we have got a lot of insight from you. Yeah,
Thank you
so
for inviting me. I appreciate it.
yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, that's it. So again, so thank you so much, guys, for watching the session. And if you have any queries, feel free to actually, I guess, DM Bob as well in his LinkedIn as well, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. Well, I should say like I don't pay attention to like LinkedIn messages that much.
Hmm.
But I am. If you drop into like CNCF or Kubernetes Slack,
Yeah.
I am much more online than I should be. And
Yes.
I will generally try and help or direct people.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you do
Oh,
send me a
oh.
message on LinkedIn, I might get to it, but like it might be a few days before I respond.
Yeah, it might be a bit late as well. So yeah, that's how I invited you as well, right? Just DM me over the CSF Slack. So yeah, thank you so much, Bob, for joining our session. So yeah, that's it. So we can just thank you so much again. So let's just end the stream then.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.